Ladies and gentlemen, making her debut, her stand-up comedy debut, please a nice hand for Jamie Jones. Jamie! Go! Jamie Jones, there she is.
That's too high. Hi everyone, how are you doing? I'm Jamie. So I'm from Huntington, and if you don't know, in Huntington you're not allowed to pump your own gas. And I didn't know that this wasn't a rule everywhere. I'm over in Wonton, I'm at the pump for like 20 minutes. And a guy walks up and he taps on the window and he says, excuse me ma'am, there's a line waiting to fill up, you've got to move. I said, aren't you going to service me? He said, sorry lady, I'm married. So I'm completely unsatisfied. And I'm already at 7-Eleven, so I go inside to get a hot dog. I ended up leaving though because I waited there for another 15 minutes and there was no waitress. So I'm actually 3 years in remission for breast cancer. Yeah, it's really cool to be able to say that, but sometimes I would completely forget that I was sick. I was at a wedding, and I was still bald, and I'm watching the bride dance with her father, and a friend that I hadn't seen in a while came up, and she puts her arm on my shoulder, and she says, oh, you always put on such a brave face, how are you doing? I was like, I'm fine, my dad died 10 years ago. People say really strange things when they find out that you have cancer. A guy that I used to work with said, my grandfather died of cancer. And I was like, wow, cool. I'm trying not to do that. My mom's friend said to me, is it the good kind of cancer? What is the good kind of cancer? Toenail cancer? You just like get a pedicure and that's it? A woman that I didn't even know in the grocery store says to me, have you tried Eastern medicine? I said, thank you so much for your concern. If you don't mind, I think I'm going to stick with Sloan Kettering. But I think the thing I hated the most that people said was, you are so brave. So I started responding with, thank you. When I'm healed, I'm going to be even braver. I'm going to go cliff diving, bungee jumping. I'm going to eat a White Castle. I had a really hard time getting up in the morning. Do you guys remember that earthquake in the spring? Yeah, I slept through that. My neighbor's house on Thanksgiving was on fire. There were 4 fire trucks, and I slept through it. My company had a mass layoff on Zoom. They let go of 250 of us. You guessed it, I slept through it. The next morning I get to work, late, and my boss says, great news! I'm like, okay. And he said, you can go home and go back to sleep. I have been fired so many times just because I'm late. Most recently I was fired from a job for being late too many times. And I had gone through all of my excuses. You know, I had spilled coffee on myself, I was out walking the dog for too long, I sat at the gas station for 20 minutes. Let me tell you, it is really hard to justify why you are late so often when you work at home. My husband likes to leave me lists around the house when he goes out of town for work. And when he gets home, he says, you know, what'd you get done? And I have to admit, I was asleep. I didn't even look at it. The Thursday before Christmas, he gets home at 8 p.m. And he's like, I guess you didn't read the list. So go and I get the list. And it says, number 1, make the bed. Number 2, fold the laundry. Number 3, make sure you pick me up at the train station at 3 p.m. 3 weeks after that, he was on business in Texas for a week. And when he got home, he said, you did it again! You slept through picking me up at the airport! And I was like, wait, you were away? I was actually supposed to go first tonight, but they had to push me back because I sat at the gas station for 20 minutes. So my mother-in-law is having a hard time letting me into the family. She's really big into sending emails, and she always signs them, Love Mrs. Jones. I have been married to her son for 8 years, and she still signs them Love Mrs. Jones. Now, I don't consider myself a petty woman, but I did change my email signature to say, sent from the fresher, younger-faced, more patient, friendlier, nicer to waitresses. Children and dogs love her. New Mrs. Jones's iPhone. She came to visit over Christmas, and she left her makeup bag behind. And she calls me and she says, "I expect you to mail that to me." And I was like, guess what? I already did. And now I'm the owner of a kick-ass Coach makeup bag. It might sound like my mother-in-law is the villain in my set, but she's not. She's the villain in my life. You know, so when you work from home, you really get a feel for the neighborhood, and I've realized that my neighbors are terrible. They have yelled at us on at least 4 occasions for things like touching their garbage or getting grass clippings on their driveway. So for the holidays, I put out a sign on my front lawn that said Happy Holidays. And then they put out a bigger sign that said Merry Christmas. I put out a menorah in my window. Thank you, Jews. And then they put out a giant glow-in-the-dark nativity scene. All right, Christians. So for Halloween, they put out a ton of decorations that had hay everywhere, and it attracted rats, and there were rats all over both of our lawns. So I put out a ton of traps. It is not my fault that their daughter loves cheese. Last summer, I was babysitting my 9-year-old nephew, and he broke his arm. And we're at the emergency room, and I said to him, "I'm going to give you $50 for being so brave with your new cast." And he said, "No, you're going to give me $100. And I'm not going to tell Mom that you were sleeping when I fell out of the tree." That's my time. I got to go take a nap.
Jamie Jones! Jamie Jones! He's going back to sleep now.